Hey, everybody. I am so excited today to have Kelsy. Oh my gosh. I'm not sure how to say your last name. Hoerauf?
Hair off.
Hoerauf. I should have asked that a long, long time ago. I'm sorry. Anyways,
Okay.
here I am with my latest best-selling author, and I really am so excited to share you, Kelsy, with all of them. So, can we start out first with a little bit of like who you are and what you do in the world? And oh, by the way, Kelsy lives just up the road from me. She's the
Yeah.
closest client I've ever had.
Ooh, I get that title too.
Yes.
All
So,
right.
yeah, tell
So
us what you
I
do.
am, like you said, I'm Kelsy Hoerauf. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Michigan. So I've been doing therapy for over 10 years now, working with a lot of people. Anxiety ended up becoming kind of my specialty. So that was
Mhm.
interesting how that kind of developed. I'm also a life coach. So that's something I started doing um, alongside with the therapy, having some life coaching clients in addition to some therapy. And if you didn't know, a lot of therapists do some life coaching in their therapy. So it's kind of interesting how that works. But yeah, and then I'm also a martial artist. So that's something else I pride myself
Mhm.
on. Been doing that
Wow.
for at least 20 years more, we won't say. But
Yeah, so that's like a don't mess with Kelsey hint right there. Or
yeah,
take her
yes.
take her as your bodyguard. That could be a thing too.
There we go. I could start a new business of bodyguarding.
Yeah. Like, when I go downtown or something like that for some of the events at night, you can come with me. So, Kelsey, what made you decide to write a book and do it this year?
Oh my gosh, it just kind of like everything just happened at like as it like lined up, right? So I was thinking like,
Mhm.
okay, I would like to write a book. I had done a collaboration throughout this
Mhm.
process, but I wanted to write my own book,
Great.
and I wanted it to be about my approach to life coaching and also have stories in it of my life to kind of to illustrate the points, but like
Yeah.
um just people that have started reading my book are like totally taken aback because the first is my personal story of being diagnosed with mental illness as a
Yeah.
teenager. So that was a
Mhm.
whole thing that happened, and I shared that in the book because not only do I want this to be like, hey, this is life coaching, right? Like this is what I do, but I also want to be like, hey, let's fight this stigma. Let's talk about these things that
Mhm.
and working in the mental health field for so many years, it's such a big secret and you can only tell your therapist, and like it shouldn't be that way.
Right, right. That's great. I love how you were so willing to share those stories that maybe other people wouldn't want to share or would think, oh my gosh, what are people going to think if they know that? So, how did you overcome some of those thoughts in your head, or was that just not a thing? You were just like, yep, I'm
um,
going to tell it.
I mean, I did decide to tell it, but it still was a thing. Sometimes I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I put that in there, like people are going to read that. Like
yeah.
so it was just like but I felt a bigger mission, like I felt a bigger call to actually
Mhm.
help people. So I didn't
Yeah,
want I didn't want to cut it short and not tell the stories, and then later
right.
on feel like, oh, I probably should have put that in my book, like that would have been
Mhm.
helpful in some kind of way. So I kind of, I guess, pushed myself
Mhm.
to challenge myself to be more real, because I feel like that's what's missing in a lot of you know the
Yeah,
world right now. We got the social
yeah,
media, so it's look at me, and I can
right.
tell you from knowing people, when you know somebody personally, you kind of know more of the story, and it's generally not what you see in Facebook.
No, it's usually not. You said you've been getting some feedback about the stories that you've had in the book. So what are people saying?
Yeah, so they're like thanking me, actually, just like thanking me for telling the story, for talking
Mhm.
about this, because a lot of them have their own mental health struggles that they are
Right.
dealing with, and they think they should be able to talk about it, and it
Mhm.
shouldn't be some big secret. And then it seems like also some people are appreciating kind of some of the techniques or advice put in
Mhm.
through, and most of those are more along the lines of life coaching.
Mhm.
So obviously, I'm not treating people through a book, but
Right,
but
right, right.
at least some of finding those helpful already, even as just from
Mhm.
reading the book and applying them, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, just think about the impact as time goes on. More and more people get to read this. Is going to be wonderful. Now, inside it, you talk about your mind goals method. How
Hmm.
did that method come about?
So that method came out, I mean, like I said, it was kind of organically too. It's just like
Mhm.
me looking at what is my approach, not only
Mhm.
for life coaching clients,
Yeah.
and like I said, I use some of it even in therapy clients, because some of it, you still need mindfulness and
Mhm.
like things like that to be like mentally healthy, but also kind of what I needed to hear myself. I was like, okay,
Mm.
these are the things that I know if I do and I apply, that I do
Mhm.
better when that happens. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's put this down, and then
Mhm.
hopefully it can help some other people as well.
Yeah. So it was a little bit of your own personal journey, what helped you, and then what you saw helping clients through all the years that you've been doing therapy and life coaching.
Yes.
That's great. Awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the actual writing process. You
Yes.
know, people are always interested in, well, how did you get it out of your head? And was it easy? What kind of struggles did you have? I'd love to hear just a story about what it was like for you to put the book together.
Okay, so for me, I have a 3-year-old, so it was a very key to set aside time to write
Yeah,
at least every week, if not more
yeah,
often than that,
yeah.
because that was the biggest barrier. It was like it's really hard to write when your house is in chaos and things are
Yeah.
happening, and so it was like, okay, I actually need that. And your with your structure of your program also really helped with that, because there was
Mhm.
times when it was like, okay, you're going to be on camera and write. So it was like, oh, so it's not just
Yeah.
me now, it's actually like an
Mhm.
appointment. So it was like,
Yeah.
okay, so that was helpful. And then just setting aside time in my own calendar to be like, okay, I'm going to write at this day. And yes, there was, I struggled with procrastination at times. I struggled with, you know, like, even what to include sometimes and what not to
Mhm.
include. I
Mhm.
actually had a couple different things that I kind of switched out, and I ended up deciding, and I'm glad I went the way that I went.
Mhm.
But when you're writing a book, it's not like you're just going to do it in one shot and it's going to be like done. It's going to be like, you're doing it in chunks, and then you're
Right.
gonna sometimes you're gonna get rid of something, and then other times you're gonna bring something else in later, because you want it to flow. You want it to be
Mhm.
like, because I wanted mine to be kind of like a story too. So you read
Right.
it and you read the story of like, I have the story of breaking my first board as a martial artist, right? So I talk about that kind of in detail. And, that was a long time ago. I was a little kid, but I remember
Mhm.
it because it was so impactful. I couldn't
Mhm.
believe I just broke this board with my hand. Like, it was great.
Yeah, that's really cool. So along the way, did you find that there were little hacks or any like tip that you might give somebody who's like, I want to write a book, other than the set aside time? Was there
Mhm.
something that really helped you to make sure you got it done?
So I think part of it was the outlining
Hmm.
of the mind goals. Like once I had that, I was like, okay, I need to write about this in this chapter and this in that chapter. And it just became
Hmm.
much more structured and clear,
Yeah.
because I think
Hmm.
that to me, that was initially one of the biggest challenges, is that you just have this vast array of anything you could write about, and there's
Right.
too many choices. You can't
Yeah.
pick, you're just
Yeah.
like, so yeah, so I was really glad once I had the structure in mind to say, okay, I know in this chapter I'm talking about this. I can add, definitely
Hmm.
add something personal to it. I can make it,
Hmm.
make it hopefully useful to my clients, not just like a read, like just read to read, but actually
Sure.
get something out of it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm always saying there's no such thing as writer's block. It's really clarity block. So I love that you mentioned it was about like how that clarity helped you figure out exactly what you needed to write in each part. And I know you were doing other things as well. You took a martial arts test, you're doing another one. Like I think you did you do multiple ones during
So
this time?
I took a written test,
Okay.
which
Hmm.
I did well on. Yay! That was a lot of
Okay.
studying, and that was a lot went into that. And then now I have my physical test actually in
Mm.
just over a week here.
Oh,
So
okay.
so there's a written test, the physical test. I'll be
Yeah.
writing a thesis now, so I got to come up with a
Yeah.
structure for that so I can
Yeah.
knock that one out too. So
Cool. Are you gonna be breaking anything else?
yes, definitely. It's going to be a full test. So we're going to be sparring, which is the fighting with the pads on, and we'll be
Yeah.
breaking, which none of us have done for a very long time because of COVID. So it'll be
Oh,
interesting to
yeah.
just get in there and, and do it again. All of us have done it in the past, but it's just been
Yeah.
a while. So
Right,
that
right.
should be hopefully fun. It's really fun when you break it. It's excellently fun.
I'm sure, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit about like the maybe the week of bestseller and the bestseller day. Like what was it like? How did it feel? And what kind of thoughts were going through your head at that time?
So, yeah, it was nerve wracking. I mean, I was like, contacting people, like, and honestly, um, it became kind of easy though because of like the recommendation of posting, every day
Mhm,
or every other day for like a
mhm.
month or whatever beforehand.
Yeah.
So when I did that, and then people who showed interest, those are the
Mhm.
people that I ended up going back and messaging once the book was actually available.
Right.
So it wasn't like cold messaging. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like people
Exactly.
who didn't care about what I was doing. It was like,
Right,
oh,
right.
yeah, they showed interest. So then I got a more of a warm response of like people saying either, hey,
Mhm.
I'll get it, or just not responding because people don't see their Facebook messages all the time and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it was like I don't want to say roller coaster, but kind of like a roller coaster. And the time when it actually came out, and then
Yeah.
like watching it like be on the rankings,
Right.
like
Right.
watching it, like, okay, is it gonna get to number one? Like, what's gonna happen? And just like that was kind of suspenseful in that moment, and I had no way of knowing, like, and one of the categories was I think the hot new release categories was like biographies of psychologists, and I was like, hey, this
Uh-huh.
is really cool because I'm not a psychologist. I'm a therapist, so close, but yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's just the way they do the categories and stuff like that. But then the other one was social scientist and psychologist. So I was like, okay, that's definitely me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Amazon will pick some sometimes and we kind of go, huh. One of my clients got put into a cult and she's like, I don't even know what that means, but
Oh,
Amazon picked it for her. And her book was nothing occult at all. Like nothing about it at all. Her book had to do with overcoming addictions
oh,
and how she did that. So it was like, a life coaching, personal development book.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
decided to stick it in a cult. And we were like, oh, that's wrong. That's kind of weird. But I mean, that's what robots do, right? They they go through and they decide things and we don't know why that happens. But it was really cool for yours that you got put in those categories. And then
Mhm.
you got bestseller not just in hot new releases, but in the main categories of
Yes,
three different categories that day.
yes.
So what did you do that day to celebrate? Like when you hit number one, what'd you do?
I had some filet mignon.
Ooh,
Yes,
yummy.
and I think went in the hot tub.
Oh,
Just
nice. I
like
did
just
not
something
know you had
fun
a
and
hot
like
tub.
relaxing but fun, and just like
Yeah.
kind of like just kind of like what would be a nice night, and things I had been maybe neglecting doing because I had been like so focused on the writing, like gotta write and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. What'd your husband say?
He said he was so proud of me. Like
Aw.
he was very proud of me. He posted it up everywhere. Like he didn't, he didn't hesitate.
Yeah, he seems like
So
he's a very supportive, very sweet guy. Yeah. Did you tell your 3-year-old? Was it something that like you could even sort of even explain?
I don't know if I really tried, to be honest. I mean, we talked about it with him present, of course. But I don't
Uh-huh.
know if I tried to explain to him, like, hey, mommy sold a book, like, like mommy's a best-selling author. So, so yeah,
Yeah.
maybe when he gets a little bit older, we'll talk about it a little more, just so he can kind of understand. But
Yeah, it'll be like the
yeah.
story of when you were 3 and wouldn't leave me alone and I had to write a book. Cool. So what do you see for the future with you and this book? How are you going to use it in your business?
So, excuse me, I'm gonna use it in a sense of allowing people to, getting people to read it and having people that read it and are into it, that like
Hmm.
it, are like, hey, I think I want to talk to her. I think I want to maybe hire
Right.
her or something like that. Like my
Mhm.
website is in there,
Yeah.
at the end of every chapter, because I offer a workbook to go along with it. So then
Hmm.
they can do that. And then if they sign up for that, they'll get some emails from me, just start to get to know me, kind of how I
Hmm.
work and what I do. And,
Yep.
there's a lot about mindfulness in there, because I feel like that's
Mhm.
so tied to happiness, and it's like so
Right.
important that I feel like that's
Mhm.
one of the key things that I do. Even
Right.
though I don't know if all life coaches do that, but I do. It works for me. It's with my background, as a therapist. It makes sense to me to try to tackle the happiness, and I like that, because
Yeah.
it is a difference. When you've been a therapist, you're diagnosing, illness
Yeah.
all the time. But
Right.
this is kind of the flip side, which is what I love, which is like, hey,
Hmm.
what actually makes you like happy, fulfilled, in a good place, satisfied with your life, like all these
Right.
things. And so
Hmm.
exploring that is like a joy, a total joy, because you get to explore the positive side.
Yep. Yep. And so do people, when they want to work with you, do they have to be in person?
No.
Or can they be anywhere? So you do your stuff via Zoom and stuff
Right,
like
right.
that?
I do both. I do, yep,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. I do Zoom, obviously, for the people who aren't local.
Yep.
People who are local, it's definitely an option to meet in person. I've done that. I've done a small group coaching that way, and then I've done one-on-one. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm really flexible in that way. I'm like, however it works for us to meet and have,
Hmm.
hopefully a most like personal experience we can get, even if it's over
Yeah.
over the internet.
Great. All right. I am going to try to plop in your, um, what do you call it? Your link to your book here in the comments if people want to go ahead and get it. Oh, it says can't post comments to some. I'm going to have to do it afterwards. I don't want to get
Okay.
distracted. So I will do that afterwards. So, guys, if you want to grab Kelsey's book, I'm going to put that underneath. And then, as well, if you want help with mind goals and basically how to live a happier life, crush your goals, succeed, all of that stuff. I got that right, Kelsey?
Yes, yes, you nailed
Then
it.
get with her and maybe Kelsey afterwards as well. If you can put the link to like how people can contact you if they want to get with you
Okay.
and potentially explore
Mhm.
coaching and stuff with you, that would be fabulous. And any last tips for anybody? Like if they're thinking about writing a book and they're just like, oh my gosh, just seems so hard, or maybe they've had something started on their computer, what would
Mhm.
you want to tell them now?
I would say plan it, schedule it, and do it.
Yeah, because you can already see, and Kelsey, your book came out just at 28th of last month. Like
Mhm.
you can already see the lives that you're impacting and the people who you're touching with your story and your process and everything. Just, I can only imagine where this is going to go and how it's going to pan out because you're already getting those comments. So, congratulations on bestseller.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thanks for being with us. Any last words? I'll just ask one last time. Any last words for anybody?
Um, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can. Whatever your goal is, whatever the big thing is, it's
Yeah.
totally possible. It's you're very capable. You might need a life coach like me to come like just give you some structure, hold your hand, get that accountability, get all of that
Yeah.
going. But don't sell yourself short. Like you can
Yep.
actually do it. It's just because it seems far fetched maybe initially doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you can't succeed.
Exactly. And if you want the same structure that Kelsy got, reach out and maybe Easy Rider will be great for you too. Thanks for being with us, Kelsy.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.